Hey everyone, welcome to the All Things Gratitude podcast. Before we get started, I got to throw out a quick sponsorship here. I want to say thank you to Impulse Consulting. If you're looking for anywhere from a profile audit to their all new 12-step, 12-week one-on-one coaching session to help take your LinkedIn profile from optimization to lead generation, please click the link below in the comments and tell them I sent you. And man, they'll set up a free 30-minute call with you. So right on. So hey, I'm excited today. This is going to be a great show. I mean, we just been, I love watching TED speakers and everything. And our next guest has been a TED speaker. And I can talk everything he's accomplished can take up the whole show. So I'm just going to do the cliff notes really quick. Over his 20-year career, he has worked with tens of thousands of leaders in over 25 countries and served clients in all industries, including 42, that's right, people, 42 Fortune 100 companies. He delivers dynamic keynote seminars and workshops covering a variety of leadership topics, including communication, team building, conflict management, peak performance, motivation, and change. His latest book, Crack the Leadership Code.
Cracking Leadership
Code. Is out. Check it out. I put it in the link below too in the comments, so you can go right to it. I want to say welcome to the show. We've been practicing how to pronounce his name properly before. Alain Hunkins.
Yeah, I see the Hunkins chirped you up this time, Nick. That's great.
I know.
There we go. Thanks, Nick. Hey. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you today. Thanks.
I appreciate it. I know you got a busy schedule with everything going on. So, I mean, I'm just glad you can just break away a little bit and get on my podcast. We were introduced by a mutual person that we both know really well on LinkedIn, Jordan Mendoza. And I want to say thank you for that, Jordan. I mean, this is just a great opportunity for the podcast today. So, and thanks for taking it on today.
You're most welcome. Looks like Jordan just left a little comment in the chat. Hey, Jordan, good to see you. Thanks.
Yeah, there he is. So I can do that. Say, hey, what's up, Jordan? There we go. So, I mean, I don't know where to start, man. You have so much going on with your career and everything. I think the biggest thing is, I mean, you got books, you keynote, you do TEDx. I mean, there's so much going on. Where did this all start? And when did it just like pop in your head one day? It's like, you know what? This is the road I want to take. This is the road I'm going to go down.
Yeah, sure. So interesting. We can talk about books and keynotes and TED, all that stuff. And to me, Nick, all that stuff is like the stuff on top. Like that's like the surface level of what happens. Actually, down below, it's all the same thing. It's like, I'm here on this planet for a reason. I think all of us are here for a purpose. We have a mission, and our purpose is to figure out what that is. And for me, I got lucky in that early on. I was 26, 27 years old. I got really clear that my purpose was to create a more vibrant and alive world by kindling the fire of brilliance in people. Because like nothing lights me up more than seeing people learn about how much potential they have and starting to unleash that potential. And so that was my passion. I didn't start doing it to write books or to make money or to be on a TED stage. Not that there was a TED stage back then. It was, how can I start doing this and just spend my days either reading about it, being around people who were doing it, learning more, taking workshops, taking classes, getting involved, volunteering. Like I soaked that up. That's what I did at the time. And so for me, it started with this dream of I want to make the world a better place, because I guess for me I was so empowered through some of the trainings and things I'd been through. I wanted to share that gift and pay it forward.
That is awesome, man. And you do such a great job, watching your videos and stuff. I totally relate to you because of the fact my leadership style is very similar to what you're throwing out there. And I just love that. I love listening to it. It's about empathy. It's about compassion. It's about taking care of people. Yeah. And one of my big sayings I do to my teams and everything, and I even say to leadership above me, is you have to treat people like humans, not numbers, and your results will just skyrocket. And it just amazes me. I know you go around and talk to a lot of these companies. It just amazes me how many people don't realize that. It's just pushed off to the side. It's just, they're down there, they're making me money. It's not cool.
It's so not cool. And the thing is, and some people might even realize it, but they haven't internalized it. Like they get it in theory, like, they'll say, people are our greatest asset. And they'll say that's important. but they don't live it. And I think part of why a lot of people don't live it is because the role models of people who do it really well, especially in a business setting, are few and far between, right? Because you got to trust in a new way of being. If you're used to this, I got to push people and grind them and extract things from them. I mean, funny saying we have, right? Human resources, like they're to be mined, like let's exploit what's in there, as opposed to change the equation and trust that if I actually put people first and I assume trust as opposed to grinding them, that not only are they going to feel better, but bottom line, we're all going to benefit more. If I haven't ever seen that, am I willing to trust trying that? And I think a lot of people are just really, look, we are creatures of habit. It's really easy to stick with what we know. And the leaders that I see that are doing this well are the ones that have made that momentous leap of faith into a new way of being. And you see the results. And there's tons of research of which I've studied it and I've written about it. You know, the research shows, for example, that high trust organizations outperform low trust organizations by a factor of like profitability of 286%.
That's insane.
It's insane. And it makes sense.
You know, it gets me. You have these companies too, and I won't mention them, but they're huge companies, you know, that try to provide everything for their team members inside the building. And, you know, and some of that stuff, it's absolutely great. I've worked for companies that have basketball courts, that have pool tables. That stuff's fun, but they still don't know how to treat people. They put that in there to try to, I don't know, disguise it or something, you know, and it still doesn't work. And I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and I like to know how you feel about this. Is we're talking about where this changed from, you know, you come to work, you do what you're told, you're lucky you're getting a paycheck attitude, to take care of your team, always good, be with your team, you know, because of the fact that turnover rate now it's starting to get really high, and it's because we have so much access to more job sites and more recruiters because the internet and everything launched. And I think the internet has a huge thing to do with all this, which it's going in the right direction now. Don't get me wrong, I am happy, you know, but I think in the long term too, you're going to lose a lot of those long-term tenured employees just because it's just so much out there. So I think what you're preaching and what companies need to do, they really need to get on it, or you're only going to have a 5 to 7 year employee most of the time.
Yeah, if that. No, great point to bring up, and so important to consider. Yeah, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the most recent studies I saw was that workers age 25 to 34, the average tenure they have at jobs is only 2.8 years, right? So for us nowadays, job hopping is the new normal. And I think you touched on something here, Nick, which is we can't lose the sight of technology, how much technology has changed the equation. Because look, if you were in a bad job, but you didn't know what else was out there, it was hard to how are you going to search for a new job and go through the hiring process. Today, between things like LinkedIn and Glassdoor, people know where the grass is greener, and people are not afraid to hop the fence. And so the number one reason that people say they'd look for a new job is their inability to learn and grow. So what are you as an employer, as a leader, what's the value proposition that you're giving? Because to say a paycheck is not good enough anymore. Now that was good in the 1920s when Henry Ford had the Ford Motor Company, and people were just, there was no middle class. So at that time, the options were extremely limited. But now there are so many more options, and people's expectations are higher. And I think we can thank technology along with the rise of the millennials in the workplace who went, you know what, I'm not going to keep a crappy job. In fact, I'll move back and live back home with my mom and dad instead of taking this job, which is other generations wouldn't have considered. So there's this combination of technology and just social change about what people are willing or not willing to do. And I think we're going to see that explode even more so in 2021 on the tail end of the pandemic, because, you know, this year has taught everyone there's no such thing as work and life. All there is life. And there's some work in that. And the fact that the boundaries between what work is and where it takes place have completely blurred. And we're not going to be going back to something old. There's not going to be a return to normal. There's going to be the new normal of whatever that looks like. But we know it's going to involve that people are going to, no matter what, the human principle is people want to be seen, recognized, and valued. And yeah, you can give them a ping pong table or a foosball table, And that's not going to replace the fact that what people really want to do is contribute to meaningful work that they feel makes a difference. And that's what we all want to do. We want to feel like what we're doing actually makes a difference on some core level.
Absolutely. About 10 years ago, when I started getting into manager, director positions, executive levels, I went to this seminar, and the keynote speaker brought up a really good point, which, being new to everything, I was just trying to figure out everything on what my leadership style was going to be and everything. Yeah. And he comes up and he's like, how many of you have had a really great leader that you would give anything for and work for? And only half the people raise their hand. And it's like, okay, that seems about right, just how it is. How many people have a horrible leader that all you want to do is quit your job and punch them in the face? And everybody rose their hand, just hands went up, and it was like, huh. And then he was giving some examples. He goes, when you become that great leader, do not be like the person you hate. Remember every single thing they did to you and do the complete opposite. And you know what? That has just stuck with me, because I wanted to be treated in a certain way. We're humans. We have emotions, and we want to hear good job, that a boy, get a pat in the back from our leadership every once in a while. It's nice. So, and one thing I really hate is when leaders say, I don't have the time. I find that the biggest BS line ever, because it's my job being in that position to find time. And what I was taught to do, and what I've always done, is I mark off every day an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon to be down with my team or be amongst the frontline employees down if it's with other departments or wherever. It's amazing what the visual of you being there and interacting and just saying hi, killing them with kindness, just all those little traits. It's amazing how much it can change an organization. It can do it really quick too. That's what people don't realize. This is not going to take months to do. You can change it really quick if everybody buys in to what you're doing. And that's the biggest thing. And I don't think all leadership does that right now.
It's such a good point, Nick. I mean, the fact is, you talked about people buying in, and leaders need to make an investment. And I had a mentor who once told me, he said, if you want to know what people value, take a look at their checkbook register, right? Because that's where they spend their money. Mm-hmm. If you want to know what leaders value, take a look at their calendar and where they spend their time, because that's what they value. And like you said, you make 2 hours a day because you're not seeing as like, oh, I'm wasting time down here. Like, no, you are investing those 2 hours because you realize all of the headaches and the problems that you're not going to have to deal with, because you've been creating these relationships and building these bridges and bonds over time. So it's going to actually speed things up. So this is the paradox that leaders need to understand, is that as leaders, we need to have the wisdom. There's a time and a place to go fast. Yes, we're not here to be best friends with each other and be in a social club. Like, we have a job to get done. We have results to deliver. There is a bottom line to produce. And sometimes the best way to get there is to slow down, is to check in. And sometimes it's to go fast. And you've got to have the wisdom to know the difference between those two things. So what are you doing to invest your time with people? Yeah, when people say, oh, I don't have the time, I think it's more of a question of, oh, I don't know what my priorities really are. I'm basically focusing on things that aren't the top priorities, because your people should be your highest priorities if you're in a leadership role.
I love one of the sayings you put in there. We're not here to be best friends. Absolutely correct. But if you can build meaningful relationships with those people, that's what I try to do. It's like, I always say, we're not here to be best friends, but I want to build like a family atmosphere as much as we can. We don't have to, go hang out and go to the bar and have a beer after work. But if we can get along at work and agree on what we're doing here and respect each other's opinions and learn from each other, that's the main goal for me, and I just love this. This is great. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's outstanding for me to talk with somebody who understands my thought process too. And I obviously understand yours. And this is the way I try to go with my career, and teaching people and being there with them and creating the right culture that people need. Because like I said, there are some people who just don't get it. And it's too bad, because those people that we're interacting with, they need to realize, I can build policy and procedures. We can build that, but who's doing the work? It's not us. It's the people below us. They're the ones paying us, if you really think about it. Yeah. So that's how I look at it. It's just like, just take care of them. So,
And it's funny because you talk about, we can build policies and procedures. And to me, when I think of policies and procedures, if I think about the game of business, that is the map. Policies and procedures, that's the game board. That's the two-dimensional game board. But that doesn't exist by itself. Like the map is not the territory, and it's your people who are actually living out those policies and procedures. That's three dimensions, where we get off the flat game board and we're actually living and playing the full-on game. And so we have to understand, we have to prioritize those people because they're the ones that bring the policies and procedures to life and understanding how that plays out.
Awesome. So where did you get your start with your public speaking and everything? Was it just off of like doing videos like this? Were you employed by a company? Do you do that? Or did you just market yourself and get out there and find some gigs?
No. So my start in public speaking, I went to undergrad. I studied liberal arts. I graduated as an English major. And basically after that, I got really interested in theater. I went to graduate school and I have an MFA in acting. So I spent 3 years on stage learning the craft of being a performing artist, being an actor, which is where you cut your teeth. And I played different characters, Shakespeare, Moliere, et cetera, et cetera. And I was performing for 3 years with my grad school class. So that's where I started this. And then from there, I went into doing arts and education and teaching work. I was working in New York City junior high schools and high schools, teaching leadership training and conflict resolution to middle schools and high schools. In some pretty hard-hit neighborhoods. So that's where I cut my teeth teaching. And then from there, I moved into doing corporate training where I was, depending on the group, working with a group of, it could be 10, 15, 20, 30 people, or sometimes I'd be leading a conference of hundreds or even thousands of people. So just a lot of practice. People say, how do I get better at public speaking? I say, remember, public speaking isn't something that you can practice at home by yourself. Is that the more opportunities you have to get up and speak. Now, here's the great news. If you want opportunities, there's a wonderful organization I recommend highly. You may have heard of it, Toastmasters, right? Toastmasters.org. It's the world's largest not-for-profit. It is all about giving people a venue and a forum to become better communicators. And the core of leadership is communication. So for me, it was just a question of where I got my practice. The fact is you can get your practice anywhere. And part of the journey when you practice it so many times is you realize when you learn anything new, you have to go through what I call the ugly phase, right? The first time that you do it, you got the little gremlin on your shoulder who is whispering in your ear and saying, Alain, this sucks so bad, right? And so you have to realize the only way to get through that is to go through it, right? And so you've got to just notice that that's my gremlin, that's the critical voice. We're going to let that go, and then you move through it. And the key, and people say, well, what about getting nervous and stuff? For me, it's all about focusing on how can these ideas help you, the audience, as opposed to what are people thinking about me? Because ideally, when I'm so connected to what I'm talking about, I'm not thinking about myself at all. I'm not thinking about, oh, did I move this hand here or move like that? That's super self-conscious. What I want to focus on is how can I make a difference with what I'm saying around this to you?
Absolutely. When I started video and all this stuff like a year ago, and it was a train wreck. It was a dumpster fire. But like you said, you just keep getting up and keep doing it. And each one's getting better and better. I got new equipment, and just stuff like that. You just start improving and you get more comfortable with yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing is, majority of the people, like for you doing public speaking, they're going to see you. Yeah. They're not there to tear you down. They're there to see you. So you're not going to get you'll get some critics. Don't get me wrong. There's always those people out there. But for the majority of the time, you're going to get positive feedback back. So, just work on that and go with it. And that's what I've been doing. And it's been a lot of fun, and the negative, I just take it as a learning experience because you never know.
That's exactly what it is. And for me, it's like, what are you here to do? If you are here like, oh God, I've been doing this for 2 weeks. And how come someone hasn't called me and offered me $1 million speaking contract? I feel if that's your aim, you're going to be disappointed. Whereas if you think, how can I communicate a little bit better than I did last time? Yeah. And if you can start to learn to fall in love with the process, like I actually really enjoy rehearsing things because I also find I'll write a speech. And then as I start rehearsing it and getting it, when I say rehearse, I'm literally on its feet, speaking it out loud, either to myself and then to other people, but I'll notice, oh, there's a better way to say that, or that's not as clear as I want. And editing, and you can constantly be editing. At a certain point, it's never perfect. And the goal is not perfect, it's progress. Mm-hmm. But falling in love with the process of learning and shaping this stuff, see, then you're always happy. Then you're not worried about the outcome of, oh, did this earn this much money or how many people are this? Fall in love with the process of whatever it is, whether it's public speaking, whether it's writing, whether it's creating content of any kind. It's important to really enjoy the process of what you're doing. And yeah, ultimately you're going to have to find some ways to monetize something. This may be a side thing, and maybe the thing that you love to do earns you no money, and you have to do it, earn your money somewhere else. That's okay too. I think, especially in American culture, we tend to think, oh, if you are super passionate about what you do, the world is going to come beating at your door, and you're going to, throw money at you. And that, do people, let's say the most important thing for you to do right now is to care for an elderly parent who's aging and dying. Who's going to pay you a lot of money? I mean, I think that's a super valuable thing. Or raising small children. I mean, these are huge things that our society does not pay money for. Are you going to say it's not important? I would beg to differ. So it's, understanding, find your passions and cultivate them, and they may or may not monetize today, and that's okay.
I love that. Finding your passions. I'm really passionate now on this podcast, and the reason I do it live is because I want people to see who I really am. Because anybody can type behind a keyboard and sound like the greatest person in the world. I want people to see that I make mistakes. I want people to see that I can fix them on the fly. I just want to see people, the smile that's on my face and my personality. That's what that's what's mainly here for. And I always told people, hey, I'm not here to make money, but if I do one day, then awesome. And then we can change how everything's going on it. But to that point, I just want to have fun. I mean, somebody did send me some stuff in the mail to try out and want to be on the show. So I thought that was kind of cool. I mean,
progress, right?
Yeah, but it's like it's saying it's the next step. And now we're developing a website for the show. We launched it on Anchor to all these other stuff. So we're doing little by little, and I'm enjoying each step because what it's doing is I'm learning a lot too.
Yeah.
I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about all these amazing guests that have come on the show. And then the best thing is I'm building networking partners. And to me, that is the huge thing. It's like, 2 months ago, we didn't know each other, then we got introduced, and, we've commented on each other's posts. We've engaged on stuff, and, and that's huge. And that's what builds to me meaningful relationships. When you can start doing those and engage and just meet new people, then you meet new people through new people, it's just, that's the best type of marketing and advertisement I look at, it's just, but you got to put your time in. You have to put the effort in to make it work. So,
well, you bring up such a good point here, Nick, because whether you are looking to build a podcast or you're looking to lead a team, you don't grow an audience. Like, there is no such thing as an audience. What is an audience? An audience is a group of people. Right. In the same way as like you don't lead a team is a group of people. And so, like you said, like you and I building our relationship over LinkedIn and engaging with each other, it's a human to human connection. It's a human to human relationship. And so I write about this in my book about, the first fundamental of leadership is connection. So what can each of us do to reach out to others and make that human to human connection? And the biggest investment, like we talked about before, is your time and your attention, as opposed to thinking, I'm going to be, I want to be like a Kardashian and have, gazillion followers. Like, that's probably not going to happen unless something else. So, in that way, like, it's going to be built more organic. And part of that organic building has to do with how are you seeing other people, and how can they relate to you, and how do they, what can you offer to them that they want to come back for more? Whether that's a like or an engagement or just being seen.
I love that. You started a segue. Let's talk about your book now. That was great going into that. Tell us about your book and what led you to write it, and basically how people, how would it influence people if, somebody came up to you, why should I buy your book? Why are we doing this?
All right. So the book, people say, how long did it take you to write the book? In some ways, like, no joke, it took 25 years because the book is, in a lot of ways, it's a distillation of everything I've learned over my career. I started, I had wanted to write a book. And for anyone out there is thinking about writing a book, start with a blog, because a book is daunting. It's like, I started with a blog in 2011. I thought, I can write 500 words a week. That I can commit to. And I started that. And then after about 5 years, I had about 250 blog posts, and I went back through them. And what I found, there were, all the blog posts weren't just about me. It was like, I was working with different corporate groups and doing leadership training. And so I was writing stories about people that I met and little specific moments, because great writing comes out of details, comes out of a little bit of moments. And so the book came out of these 3 overarching themes that I saw kept showing up with hundreds and hundreds of groups of leaders. Is that there was one theme all around connection, which we talked about. One was around communication, and the third was about collaboration. And so this is now the subtitle of the book. The book is called Cracking the Leadership Code, and the subtitle is The 3 Secrets to Building Strong Leaders. It's connection, communication, and collaboration. And so for me, the book is really designed, so many of us want to be good leaders, want to be better leaders than we are. And the book is designed to be a practical roadmap to help you to accelerate your leadership learning curve, because we all have a learning curve. And I think the easiest way to accelerate that is if you have someone who's been a guide, who's been down that road before. And it's not just me, it's the wisdom of hundreds and hundreds of leaders over 20 years of practice giving specific things. So we can talk about connection. Well, what does that mean? Well, I get into empathy in the first couple of chapters on connection. I get into empathy, and we all understand what empathy is, right? Easy definition is showing people that you understand them and care how they feel. Like, that's fine, but why is it only about 50% of leaders are considered empathetic? So I get into all the roadblocks. So we talk about the roadblocks, the things that are going to get in your way, such as we talked about earlier, impatience. Like, I don't have time to talk to my people. And we explore that. And then I go into very specific, tactical, practical action steps. So here are 5 things you can do to strengthen your empathy muscles. Because I like to think of this as, we're going to go into the leadership gym and I'll be your personal trainer. And if you use that analogy, most of us wind up in leadership roles because we were high performers who got promoted. They're like, oh, Nick, you're a top performer. We're going to make you a supervisor. And you're like, great. Well, now suddenly all the skills that you had before no longer apply to be a supervisor. It makes you a good performer. Yeah. And now the goal for us as leaders is, how do we facilitate high performance in others? So that's these new skills, these connection skills, these communication skills, these collaboration skills, because ultimately our role is to adopt what I call this facilitative mindset, because the word facilitate means easy, making things easier. And our goal as leaders is to help others to achieve their performance goals easier. Because when our people achieve their goals, surprise, surprise, we achieve our goals as leader, right? If they win, we win. So it's understanding that bigger picture. So the book is really designed as this practical roadmap to help you become a better leader.
I love that. I mean, there's a couple things I took out of that, which is great. Number one, for me, huge is having mentors who've been there, done that, and keeping them. Don't just get through the process and boom, they're gone. No, I mean, I've had mine for 5 to 10 years, a lot of them. And, it's been a great thing. But something else you touched on was when people are promoted within, and then they had great skills on the field work, but now they're in a leadership role. I think that's where a lot of companies fail, as they don't give the proper training to internal candidates who get promoted. And I think that's where the biggest fail is, because I've seen so many people get promoted who were just the greatest team member down on the floor. But then they got upstairs and they did not know how to deal with in executive meetings. They did not know how to deal with board meetings. They did not know how to deal with this massive amount of paperwork that all of a sudden happens to you, and all of a sudden now they're only dealing with X amount of people down there. You're dealing with 15, 20 people down there. And now you're up here. Now you're dealing with 500, 600 people, and it's overwhelming for a lot of people. It really is. And I just think the training process is not there. And I think it needs to be a step-by-step, slow process, bringing them in. I mean, that would be worth more to the company than bringing somebody in and them failing right away. And then you have to go out and find somebody else. That's not fair to that person. To me, it looks like the company failed them. That's the way I take that. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's a great quote from Peter Drucker once said, you put a good person in a bad system and the bad system will win every time. And then what you just described is exactly that, right? So we have these systems and then we promote people in the system, but we haven't supported their growth. And so it's basically sink or swim. And that's only going to work for some people. And a lot of people are going to be floundering in that system.
I was so very fortunate. I was promoted from downstairs to upstairs, as they would call it. And my mentor, Pam Tyler, who was just amazing, she slowly brought me through the process. Like, I'd sit in meetings, don't say a word, just sit here and observe. Then it would be take some notes and then, do this little project. And it was about a year process she took with slowly putting me through how to deal with budget, what to look for and things, how to do that. And I know that doesn't happen a lot. And I know I'm very fortunate to be able to go through that, but that I will always remember that. And that's how I will always train people coming up too, because if she would just throw me to the wolves, my first management position ever, I would have probably most likely would have failed. And it's not because I didn't have the capability of doing it. It's just I didn't know. I would not have known what direction or how to handle things properly. And, it's just very fortunate. And I just wish more people would understand that and realize that and deal with their people that way.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's funny. I have two kids, a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. And in some ways, it's a little bit like how you deal with children, like in terms of, like, come on, like, like if I think back to when they weren't walking, it's like, you got to be running. Let's go. Like, no, they have to go through those phases of kind of crawling and then standing up and then falling down. And what are you doing as a parent in those situations is you can't be that impatient. Like, come on, you should know how to do this already. It's like, I just learned how to crawl yesterday. So giving people that time and space, it's so important.
I think where some of the fail comes from too is when you get up into like a board of directors and high up executives, all they're looking at is data. Mm-hmm. They're looking at numbers. The really good ones will get down, but very seldom you'll see that in corporations, at least the ones I've worked for, and they don't understand the process and all they're worried about is numbers. And if it's not done now, get them out of there, bring somebody else in. Well, then when you have a 20% turnover rate, you don't realize how much money it's costing you to hire all these people then, instead of taking the time and properly train them for 6 months. Yeah. And then all of a sudden your turnover rate's 1%, let's say. Look how much money you're saving too. It's just amazing.
But Nick, as you say this, about they're focusing on numbers, this is such a holdover from the industrial age, right? This is the industrial age where workers were literally seen as labor costs, human resources, right? As Henry Ford famously said of his employees on the assembly line at Ford Motor Company, why is it every time I want a pair of hands, they come with a brain attached? And so this focus on numbers, and the funny thing, and it was all about efficiency, like how can we get more out of the people on the assembly line, assuming that they are all going to do this repetitive manual labor work. Like, again, it's like I Love Lucy on the Cookie Factory. Like you're just kind of going through. It's the same manual repetitive labor where you could put anyone's pair of hands can do the same work. That is not the world we live in anymore. We live in this knowledge work age. And this focus on the numbers, whether it's 20% lower retention, realizing those numbers that you're looking at on the spreadsheet, those are just a lagging indicator of behaviors of people, including sales, revenue, profit, all of that. Those are lagging indicators of what are people doing to close business, to generate more sales, whatever that might be. And so it's got to be this switch. And it's interesting. Some leaders have made this switch. I heard a great interview with Hubert Joly, who was the CEO of Best Buy. And he said, most companies do exactly what you said, Nick, is if you go to your typical executive leadership meeting, first thing, what do we talk about? It's like, let's pull out last month's numbers, right? Okay, what are things doing? And they spend most of the time talking about how we're either not making target or we are making target. And then we talk about what are the projects that are going on? Okay, what are our big initiatives? And then if there's 2 minutes left, they go, oh, and how are the people doing? All right. Like, how are our people? What's going on? So what Hubert Joly did at Best Buy, he completely flipped the way they would have management meetings. They'd start by talking about the people. He said, don't worry, the folks in finance wouldn't let us forget about the numbers, but we started to reprioritize where we spent our time. And if we start focusing on the people and their strengths and how we can support them in doing what they do, then they'll start to take care of the projects and the projects will start to take care of the numbers. So it's counterintuitive. And most leaders don't do it because they go, but that's the way things work in business, right? You're supposed to talk about numbers because they're watching what other people have done and they haven't ever considered doing it in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love how you broke that down. It makes total sense. Don't think about how numbers on paperwork actually reflect, and it actually is what the people are doing, but all they see is zeros. All they see is the number in the 000, or what's our competitor doing? Why aren't we doing that? Kind of thing. It's like, I get it. We're in it to make money. I absolutely get it. But when you do it right, you will make a lot of money. You absolutely will. So when you go into big businesses, big companies, I mean, you've been into obviously huge corporations. When they bring you in, what do they bring you in for? Is it you're there for a week, you audit, or you're this there?
It all depends. Again, when there's no such thing as a corporation. There's people, right? Like the corporation. Okay. In terms of that, so I might be brought in by someone from, let's say, my point person might be someone in leadership development. And let's say, for example, I might be going in to work with, let's say I'm working in a pharmaceutical company and they have actually just acquired a different company. And now they have got these two pharmaceutical companies and they now have two sets of research and development people who have to work together and integrate. So they might bring me in to do some work around how can we basically become more unified about what our common mission is and do some communication integration around that. So I may do some kind of an experiential training simulation with all of them to kind of kick things off in terms of casting this vision for how we can work together. And then I might follow that up with some smaller group work with some different groups talking about and hearing from them, what are you seeing as the biggest challenges to this integration, and then helping them to create a roadmap. So it's a combination of coaching, facilitation, training, and consulting. It's sort of a big mix depending on what's going on. That's just one example of things. It's different for different companies depending on what the needs are. Usually the needs are all around something around the human factor, right? So if we think if the end goal is how do we make achieving performance goals easier, it's going to be some aspect of connection or communication, or in this case, collaboration. How are we going to do that? And so it'll look different with different folks, and every day is different in terms of that.
It is absolutely. Yeah. So that's awesome. There's something squeaking in the background here. I think it's my dog barking. Great timing, but so one day TEDx comes to you, or do you go to them? How did that all come about? Yeah.
Did that come to me? No, I'll tell you how that came about. That came about through a lot of hard work. Here's the thing. I mean, people think, oh gosh, you got a book published by a major publisher. Now they're doing all the marketing for you. Ha ha ha. No, they're not. I mean, The fact is, all of this, like every day, are you waking up and reaching out? So I had a mentor, he talked about mentors, who said, Alain, in terms of your own career and your own brand, you really want to do a TEDx talk. Okay. And at the time and so this was in June of 2018. And I was planning, and I moved to Europe with my family. We moved in end of July in 2018. So I wanted to do one in Europe because it didn't matter where it was. It's going to get videotaped for the internet. So what I did is I went on the TEDx website and I looked at where all the TEDx talks were, kind of within a 3-hour train radius from where I was going to be living in the Netherlands. And I saw, and I basically, I sorted the fields and saw that there was going to be about 40 different TED Talks going on in this location, the geographic location, in the next 6 months. And I started cold emailing folks. I mean, I looked at what their themes were, and I reached out and I said, hey, I'm Alain. I have this book about leadership, yada, yada, yada. Right. And I talked about this. And then here's the key that most people don't do. I followed up, right? You can't just send one email and think, oh, I haven't heard from them. I guess they're not interested. People are busy. I'm not their top agenda item. So I'd follow up. And out of those 40, I think I ended up getting 5 responses, right? After following up multiple. So we're looking at like 120 emails have gone out on my part, right? So obviously if you can automate this with tech, that's great. So I'm sending this out and I'm trying to customize each. The other thing about my thing I would customize every single one of these. So I didn't just do kind of audit. I mean, I had a template, but I'd customize every single one. So I wasn't just like mass emailing 40 people with exact same word for word, except for their name, because I find people know when you've done your homework, people know it, right? So of those 40, I ended up hearing back from about 5. And of those 5, one of them said, oh, our thing is happening in October. We were all full, but someone had to drop. We have one space. Tell me more about what you do. And that was a TED Talk I ended up doing, right? Awesome. So this is the thing, I forget who was it says that, luck is opportunity where it meets hard work. I mean, so you've got to kind of put in the work. And that was true for getting endorsements for the book. It was true for finding an agent for my book and getting a publisher. I wish I could give people some magic wand that could bypass all that. But no, every single day I'm getting up and I'm reaching out. I mean, same thing with starting on podcasts. I mean, my book released to the public on March the 24th, the same week that the entire world was shut down. And I thought I'd be speaking at conferences and all that. So I had to pivot. So what I would say is like, start with, who are the people that know you already, and reach out to those people, and whatever it is that can, because it's so much easier to rekindle a lukewarm or warm connection that is to make a brand new connection with someone you don't know. So so the TED Talk, they didn't come to me. No, I went to them.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, persistence, and it won, and that's the thing. I tell people, I go, you have to put in the work. You do have to have a little luck, and it's all about who you know too. All three of those things become a factor. It really does. And that's what I love about LinkedIn. That's why I network so much on LinkedIn, because like you said, it's building those relationships. Even if it's lukewarm and you're always engaging and they're always seeing you, they're going to know who you are, so that when you do reach out, you have a better chance of getting a response, because even if you haven't engaged directly with them, they're going to, I see this on this person's post all the time. He or she writes really nice stuff, really cool stuff that I can relate to. Okay, I'm going to reach back out. It makes sense, So and that's putting in the work, because that's branding yourself, and that's putting in the work. And that's what I don't think people exactly realize that, I mean, branding yourself is putting work in for you, because it's going to build something down the road. It really is.
Yeah. And the thing is, and find what works for you. I mean, I remember someone telling me, like, when I came to networking, they said, you've got to find what works for you. Like, if going to, this is back in the days before we were all shut in, some people like to go to business networking breakfasts, Yeah. And I'm like, I'd rather go root canal than go to a breakfast and talk to a bunch. Like, that's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm an ideas guy. I actually love to talk about content and like get into that stuff. And so one thing so for me, it was, let me create a newsletter where I'm curating really good ideas from other people and sharing that with others. Mm-hmm. And so once a month, it's not too infrequent, but not so frequent that people are getting sick of me. So I now, I started that with a little, you start with one subscriber. And then you move on from 2 and 5 and 10, and over time you end up with thousands. I mean, this is just how it works. And it's one person at a time. And like you said, persistence, and the word that I'll go with persistent is consistency, right? Same thing. And this is true in life, right? If you want to get healthy and get in shape, you can't just eat vegetables for a day and say, what happened? You've got to do it consistently, or go to the gym, or whatever it is you're doing. It's the compounding effect of doing any of this stuff over time. When people say to me, Alain, like, how do you get up in front of people and do what you do? It's like, look, if you did what I did for 25 years, you'd be pretty good at this too. Like, there's no magic sauce. I'm not uber talented. I just have been doing this for a long time. I was passionate enough, which got my interest. And then the rest of it was just keep working at it and don't quit.
So before this dumpster fire of a year, so going way back before March, were you doing a lot on video or anything, or were you more concentrated on the in-person relationship, going to the business, going to the corporation, going to the department, and just meet with them? Was that majority of your work?
Majority, I'd say like 99.9% of my work was in-person stuff. So this has been a huge year of reinvention for me. So, getting used to like videotaping content, doing live podcasts. Someone said, for me, that whole podcasting thing came out of necessity. Like, what I thought about it, but like that became a major strategy for me, because my other options were somewhat limited. And, talked about building a brand. So I was just reaching out and, trying to figure out which podcasts that I want to be on. I mean, this is the beauty of the internet. Google, top leadership podcasts, get lists back of hundreds. And then I, again, cold emailed folks or looked for connections of people that I knew that they knew, or people had been on their show that I knew. So this whole year has been about a lot of reinventing, getting, I could pull over here. We'll do a little thing for the live group, but I'll pull over here's my lighting, it's like in my office, like I've got the lighting, I've got, a high def camera, I've got, a decent microphone. So you get the tools of the trade, and you do what you do so that you come across professional.
Normally I have really good lighting because I'm in Arizona, but apparently we have cloud cover all of a sudden. So my room we never get clouds here. So that's nuts. So, but it happens. But Yeah, this year it was a little bit of struggle for me too, because I'm a people person, and
Yeah.
this virtual thing it was so hard for me for the first couple months, and I'm not gonna lie, it almost put me into a little bit of a depression, just because I'm so used to being in front of people and working with people and just building that relationship that way,
Yeah.
and like you said, it's been learning, and I've learned a lot about myself, and it's been really, I don't know if I necessarily like it. I still like the in-person thing, but
Yeah.
like you said, I mean, the world never goes backwards, so we're only going to move forward, and this is going to turn a lot of businesses into work from home. It really is, because we were told for years people couldn't work from home, you couldn't do it, we wouldn't succeed. And
Yeah.
there's some big companies, that are
Yeah.
succeeding very well right now, with every one of their corporate offices being a ghost town with
Yeah.
nothing in there. So it's going to change a lot, and how's it going to change? What domino effect is it going to have? Is it going now? Car sales going to go down because people aren't driving that much? Is gas prices going to go up because people aren't using gases? Is mass transit systems going to massively change because people
Yeah.
aren't leaving their home now? So it's going to be interesting the next year to year and a half. That's when everything's going to happen, I think. And that's when it's going to be interesting to see what these corporations do. Because I'll use a company, and I'm not calling them out, but like Microsoft or Google, who provide these great at work experiences for their people. That's how they drew a lot of them in, is we'll give you food, we'll give you this, you can play basketball, you can go do this, you can go do that. And now that's not there anymore. So what are these team members going to do? How are they going to compensate that for people being at home now?
Yeah.
Are they going to do something for them because of that? Change that up. So it's going to be interesting to see how that rolls. So
Yeah, no, for sure. It's interesting. I mean, I've been just following, one of the things that, Microsoft has basically, they have really changed their culture in the last 6 years, with their new CEO, Satya Nadella, and they're really working on creating this leadership coaching culture. They've kind of trained a lot of their leaders in this coaching mindset mentality. And part of that is they realize that, people don't want the old school manager. They want someone who's much more new school leader as coach. And that's one of the things that's keeping people engaged and attracted to working at a place like that, is because, like we said before, the number one reason people leave work is because their inability to learn and grow. And part of the coaching mindset, when you bring that coach-like approach to how you lead people, is people feel like you are their thinking partner, that you're helping them discover their own journey in terms of what they want to do. And when people can find stuff themselves and do it, the sense of ownership and the empowerment that comes along with that is massive. So this is where I think better organizations will be doing, such as Microsoft is doing right now.
I think you hit on a key point right there, is, one philosophy I really have being a leader is letting my team do the work. I will provide the scope of work and the tools, but letting them actually do the work and being part of the scope of work, because they feel like they're really involved. And for example, I had an electrician at a manufacturing company I worked at, and we were putting a machine in this room called a clean room, where the regulations are just tight.
Yeah.
But I let him figure out the scope of work. I told him what needed to be done and what machine was coming in. So he drew up his scope of work and did everything, gave it to me and said, "What do you think?" He did everything absolutely correct. It would pass every code there was, but he didn't realize the regulations that went into the room. So, and that wasn't his job necessarily. That was mine to put that out there. So I gave him the regulations, and, he came up to me afterwards, said, "Thank you so much for just letting me do that. It makes me feel like I'm more involved with the company, and what I'm doing actually means something to the company."
Yeah.
He knew what he did meant something to the company overall, but just being involved with a project that meant so much to the company, this was going to bring in millions for the company, and to me, it was like, okay, as a leader, you think, oh, it's not a big deal, but as that team member on the floor, it's a big deal for them. So leadership needs to figure out how to put themselves in their shoes, not stay in our shoes, but be in their shoes and see what they're seeing and understanding, and feeling. That's the biggest thing, is what they're feeling.
Yeah. This is it. I mean, you just named it, right? It's connection. That's empathy right there. It's empathy in action. And you also described so well, Nick, is that in that moment, you were what I call the facilitative leader. You are both the most important person and the least important person, right?
Mhm.
Right? Because you said, like, you let him do his thing. He didn't need you. He did his thing. And then he came back and then you kind of signed off on it. So you shift from important to not important. And we need leaders who have humble enough egos that they can shift when they need to. Like, there's a time and a place to lead from out front, but then there's a time and a place to lead from behind.
You know what? And here's the biggest thing. This is what I tell a lot of people who cares about glory? Seriously. I know it's a human trait. We want the glory and everything, but when you're a leader, guess what? Everybody knows in the room what your department does and who does what. And I will always give praise to my team. And maybe the people in the room who are the most important know that it's actually me, but I don't care, because the thing is you got to keep them happy. You got to keep your team happy. And guess what? And if leadership knew that wasn't you or this or that, or you weren't doing your job, you wouldn't be sitting there anyways.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. So, I'm just like, it's great, but you know what? Just let your team have all the glory. I mean, you're the head of the department. I know you're responsible for everything. I get it, but it's your team. Your team's the one who's paying you. That's how I always look at it. My team's the one who pays me. I know the CEO or the CFO names on the check, but let's be realistic. If that work's not getting done, I'm not getting a check. So, I mean, that's just, I don't know. My philosophy, so.
Well, it's so useful. And also, if you think about it, how does passing praise along to your team member, how does that diminish you in any way, right? So it's getting out of this binary thinking that it's either me or them. I'm either on top or I'm on bottom. I'm either good or I'm bad. No, it's like, what if there's a big enough pie that we can all share in this? And the fact is, you already have the job. You're already the leader of the group. Like, what do you need to prove? How does that diminish you in any way? But for a lot of leaders, frankly, it's a level of emotional maturity that they haven't gotten to yet, right? I mean, because it takes a certain level of maturity to see things that way. And I think part of what we're looking at doing here is, in terms of leadership development, it's emotional maturity development. It's what needs to happen in terms of for people to be more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with a bunch of leaders, side by side, we're on the same level, that have shown empathy. I've worked with them who want to lead by fear. And, and it's so hard. And they're always like, you're so easy in your team. You're so on that. I go, am I really? Yeah. Because you let them get away with this or that. Well, let's see. Our profits are up. Our downtime on machinery is down. Products getting through. People don't call in sick. And my turnover rate is 0 at this company. Well, let's see here. Am I really letting them get away with a lot of things? It's like, no, I'm doing what I need to do to retain the talent that we have, that we want. And when you give that little bit more, it's amazing how they'll take their shirts off their back for you. And you don't have to do much. That's what people don't realize. You just have to treat people like humans. That's it. That's all people are looking for in life. So, love what you do. Just love what you do. Love you're getting out to these companies, because, there's studies that are out there, especially for me being in the facilities world, in the next 7 to 10 years, but like 60 to 70% of the facilities management and high tenured employees are going to be retiring. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be a lot of turnover rate. And I think that number is pretty high too in corporate America overall, that, the older generation is starting to retire. Now you're bringing in this newer generation, and the transfer of knowledge is the biggest thing that's going on right now. And, how is that knowledge being transferred? So I think that has a lot to do with a leader showing empathy and gratitude and all that too, is, trusting the people below them and giving them that info. Cause some people want to hold on to that because they feel like that's their job security.
Exactly. And it's a different world that we live in now. It's not about the leader holding on to all that information. The fact is, it's about getting it out to the front lines, because that's where it makes good. It's not about having information. The fact is, we live in this information age where everyone has access to information. People don't actually need more information. What they need is insight and wisdom. And so this is the next generation of leadership: is how do you impart wisdom and insight to people in the right time so they can do what they do, because the world is getting faster and more complicated all the time. So we have to be able to figure out, how do we leverage being human in the middle of all of that?
Absolutely. Well, man, we're approaching an hour. This has been great. It's gone by quick, and I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, it's a lot for me, because you said you did top Google searches of leadership podcasts, and I know I kind of reached out to you on the podcast, but you decided to come on my show, and this helps me out a lot, and that's just you giving back, and I really appreciate that, and having that common denominator, I guess you would call it, Jordan, has been great, because I know you've been on his show, Blaze Your Own Trails podcast. Great one to check out, people. And it's been an honor to have you on, and I love talking to you. I mean, for what you do and everything, I can go on for hours. I know you don't want to, but I can. It's been an amazing experience for me, and great to have you on. And really quick, let everybody know where they can find you, your websites, where they can get your book. I know it's in the link, but hey, let's tell them all again.
Sure. Yeah. So probably the easiest place let's start with is the books. The book's got its own website, www.crackingtheleadershipcode.com, spelled exactly the way it sounds. That's going to take you right to the book website page, which is connected to the AlainHunkins.com page, AlainHunkins.com. And just want to let all the listeners out there know right now is I have this, and I've run it once already in October. Starting January 11th, I'm running this 30-day online leadership challenge. And it is basically micro-learning, 5 minutes a day, 30 days to becoming a better leader. And you can learn all about it there. And here's a little deal that I've just announced to my newsletter group, but I'm going to offer it to you as well, which is, and you have to DM me on LinkedIn or send me an email at alainhunkins.com, is if you sign up for this, I am willing to, not willing to, I'm going to do this. If you sign up for the challenge, I will autograph a book and mail it to you as part of the challenge fee. So that's just something I will do for anyone who signs up in the next week for the challenge. And we do start on January the 11th.
All right. Well, check it out. DM them. Put a comment down in the comments on this post if you want, and I can get you tied in with Alain.
Exactly. And connect and connect on LinkedIn as well. So I'm busy there along with Nick.
As you can see up there in the corner, you can find me on LinkedIn, my friends. Please come check us out. You can also find past podcasts up there. YouTube, Nick Dorsey Leadership. Please come check that out. And the links down in the comments, I have a link to our Anchor, to all audio going on. First to know right now, we're close to launching our website, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So be looking out for that. And Alain, thank you for being on today.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, and thanks for all the folks that left comments as well. I know we didn't catch every single one, but lots of comments here. But no, thank you, Nick. It's really been an honor and a pleasure being here with you today. Thank you.
It's been great. Hey, guys, thank you for joining us tomorrow, noon Mountain Time here in Arizona. We have an Emmy Award-winning voiceover speaker, Tasia Venezuela, Jesus. Oh, man, I've been cracking up just horrible names all day. Then Tasia's gonna be on tomorrow. I'm sorry, I just butchered your name, but she's great. She's voiceover. She's been in hundreds of video games. She's been in hundreds of commercials. She's an actress. I mean, you'll recognize her voice most likely. So check us out tomorrow at noon. Sorry, Tasia, I owe you. So have a great day, everybody. See you tomorrow, and take it easy.
Thanks.